Bethesda has decided to finally respond to you Nazi evil woman-hating bigots who hate Starfield for no reason whatsoever, and you don't deserve a voice. Yeah, that's what Bethesda has decided to do. That's very cool.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're gathering once more to talk about Bethesda, but before any of that, I do want to get into something much more important. It's really easy to get tunnel vision, particularly with gaming news, where a company will say something that really
Oh, I thought this was going to be an ad, but it isn't.
annoys you, and that may be the worst thing that happens to you all day. I consider that personally a blessing, that if the worst thing that happened to me throughout my day is some company said something mildly irritable, then I have a pretty good day. I have a pretty good life around me.
How meaningless must your life be when this is the worst thing that happens in your day? Bethesda says something stupid. Bethesda says something stupid every day. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do nothing. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't highlight it and make fun of them. But it shouldn't definitely not be the vocal point of your life.
If that's the worst that's happened to me, because
But anyone who tries to shame you for caring about something, ignore them, hate them openly, and call them wrong and a loser, because that's exactly what they are.
looking around the world, there's much worse happening to other people right now.
Literally could not care about the billions dying in Africa or whatever.
In particular, I just wanted to send some love to the folks down in Florida. 3 of my best friends live there. It's no joke what's happening there with back-to-back hurricanes and this new one in Milton looking really serious. Link down below. I will have a charity and I'm looking to donate to ones dedicated to Emil. I'll be keeping my eyes open for that, but wanted to help out the people first. Just send my love to those. Some video games. Let's talk about Bethesda, what's going on there. So in our last upload with Bethesda, we were talking about the harsh reality that came in with Starfield.
Good luck to those people, but I mean, any charity that tries to help them is probably going to get ruined by Biden.
And in Shattered Space DLC, where there's a lot of concern setting in and potentially a level of arrogance just based on developer interviews we saw done. Well, Bethesda has now responded to some of the Starfield Shattered Space criticism, and I think it's worth highlighting as well. In all honesty, I've had a ton of Bethesda videos in the chamber for a while.
Bro, how is this the default speed of the land vehicle? How stupid do you need to be to make it slower than walking?
On things I really want to talk about with the future of this company, because for me, as a big Bethesda fan, this was a big point of reflection for me with the quality of Shattered Space, and especially...
I'm sorry, didn't you say Starfield and Shattered Space are good games in general?
Now with what Emil Pagliarulo and Todd Howard are saying, even more so, it has caused me to reflect on the future of their products. So no doubt, don't worry, we'll talk about things like Elder Scrolls 6, but since the situation developed, again, I wanted to get this video out first. And also, Bethesda and Ubisoft aren't making it easy for my channel to look like an uplifting place for gaming. Typically, we're talking about a lot of good stuff. Unfortunately, the reality is sometimes things go bad. And right now, between all these companies I cover and I'm juggling, nothing's really going well right now. So, yeah, it's...
Dragon Age Veilguard is an absolute bulk disaster with top surgical scars because obviously, why not? Bethesda is just on fire and doing absolutely nothing that's even remotely relevant, and everything they do is hated. Blizzard's kind of above water slightly, but you know, everything's just kind of sinking and burning.
I'm trying not to like batter one company down completely in like 4 uploads in a row. I think that's very boring. So yeah, I want to make sure I'm trying to spread the wealth, if you will, a little bit. But anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Let's talk about what brought this to my attention, which was a pure Xbox post. I was doing my research for Defining Duke, and I came across this headline that said Starfield design director defends Shattered Space DLC after mixed reviews. And I think,
oh god, now the design director. Previously it was the main story writer who decided to make a clown of himself on Twitter, calling everyone who doesn't think that Starfield's story is a masterpiece worthy of every award under the sun. And now it's the design director that probably... not a single location in Starfield Shattered Space or Starfield it even looks remotely realistic or livable in. It feels like just a rando place that got created 5 seconds ago.
mixed, frankly, is putting it lightly, because right now it's sitting on Steam at a mostly negative rating, which, again, if you look at Bethesda Game Studios, like even something like Fallout 76 is pulled out of its negative rating. Starfield sits at a mixed, but mostly negative is, to me at least, a shocking new low for them, where everyone, even Starfield fans, are like, this really isn't it. So what did Emil Pagliarulo have to say in response to his interview that we covered on Games Radar, where he said things like, we think that Starfield is our best game yet in a lot of ways? What does he say in response?
That's so sad to think that Starfield even deserves to be called a game, honestly.
To that? Well, he posted the interview, and then a fan went on a bit of a response spree to Emil on Twitter, saying like this was very tone deaf, pretty much echoing what a lot of us felt. Like this was tone deaf, disconnected from the fans, and it feels like you're patting yourself on the head when you don't really deserve to do so, given the current feedback for the game. So here's what Emil said in response, and then I'll give some thoughts on it. He wrote, Twitter...
Please, before I read... Wait, no, it's the same dude! Oh my god, the same loser went on another Twitter rant. Oh my god, this guy has already went on a Twitter rant about how great Starfield is and how clueless everyone else is. Oh my lord, someone take the internet away from this autistic child.
Twitter/X has never been a place for polite discourse, but I'd like to address what I can. I don't like leaving fans hanging. In fact, I generally say more than I should. We have a community team for a reason, but I think a bridge to the devs is important. First, the interview. As the design director, sometimes I'm asked or instructed to do interviews. I was happy to do that, to represent the designers in the studio, seeing how hard and passionately they worked on Shattered Space.
Not a single person in the design team is a real person, by the way. There's no way. Like, none of these people understand how real life even looks. It is so saddening. The fact that, listen, making a location at least bearable is the easiest thing ever. I can go into a Warcraft 3 map editor and create a more lived-in environment in 5 minutes than any Starfield location, okay?
They deserve nothing less. Optimism and excitement are pretty standard for interviews, and I'm generally pretty optimistic and excitable about games.
Well, you shouldn't be, because you're a talentless loser hack that destroys IPs, gaming companies, and franchises. You should be extremely depressed, honestly. But no, you're so dumb you can't even see it.
By nature. That said, my optimism is in no way meant to be mud in the eye of any dissatisfied fan. That's not how it works. I'm also very proud of Shattered Space. We all are. Most of the quests...
That's an instantaneous fire. If you're proud of something that you made and literally maybe 10% of people unironically considered it good, and those 10% people fall into the mentally disabled category statistically, you should be fired, because clearly whatever the hell you're doing, you should not be allowed to do because you're a moron.
And levels were done by designers who have worked on previous Bethesda games and DLCs, going all the way back to Morrowind. They're good at what they do, and it shows. If folks haven't played Shattered Space and they like Starfield, I think they're missing out. If folks have played Shattered Space and still don't like it...
Also, it doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe what he's saying is true, and these people did make Morrowind. I could not care less, okay? If those people made Morrowind, now they are no longer even remotely relevant at what they do, and they are incapable of doing their jobs properly, okay? The fact that you once did something relatively good doesn't mean that you're going to be that relatively good forevermore. No, clearly not.
That makes me sad, honestly. Just know that we've been hearing from plenty of folks who do love it. Maybe it's a game of expectations. Fans want a lot, and we all do what we can to accommodate them. Here's what I can tell you. Nobody, and I mean nobody at Bethesda, is patting themselves on the back while ignoring our players. In addition to...
Yes, you are. You had literally a year's time to fix so many issues that Starfield had in the base game, and instead you didn't. You didn't change a single thing. You did not address a single issue that anyone claimed that this game has.
Shattered Space, we've also spent a lot of time this year addressing community concerns and making fixes. We'll continue to do so, and we'll be listening to our fans every step of the
Fire all of them.
way. We make these games for all of you. Starfield is a massive game, and it takes time for
Also, PR people took his account. This is not the same guy, okay? This guy who literally constantly is considering himself to be the cream of the crop, the best in the world, the chosen one, effectively, is the PR team wrote this. 100% Bethesda hired the PR team, and there you go. They wrote this on behalf of this guy. There is no way this is an original tweet.
us to address things. We move as fast as we can, as safely as we can. Game development is always tricky, but with a game as big as Starfield, every fix could potentially break something, which is something Bethesda's been saying since before the game even launched. To close, let me just say, I love games.
I'm sorry, but the fact that you make a game that's literally held together by old duct tape doesn't mean that I should care about it. I want you to fix things, not say, well, if we fix this, something else might break. Don't care. Find a way to fix it. I don't care. I don't care. It's not my job to care. You made a bad game. You made a bad game that cannot be fixed. Fix it, not tell me excuses.
I love Bethesda's games. I've been playing them since the Terminator days. All I or anyone here wants to do is make those games and then make them better. No ego, no arrogance, just a lot of hard work and appreciation for our fans. And
yeah, I get this. This is 100% a PR firm. There is no way this delusional lunatic wrote even a single word here.
No ego, no arrogance, just a lot of hard work and appreciation for our fans. And honestly, I think this goes back to what I've said, which is that soloing out just one individual, whether it be Emil or Todd,
it is definitely needed. It is definitely a necessity. We should keep doing exactly what we are doing. We should find these people like Emil and get them fired because they don't deserve to have a job. Because they're clueless losers that ruin everything and then call other people dumb. Okay? Emil deserves literally every ounce of dissatisfaction people have.
Is problematic in trying to fix what's going on with Bethesda here, which is, as I've said before, I think a systemic issue. I don't think it boils down to one person, but a collective mindset about how they approach their games. And we'll get into that in a little bit with what Todd Howard said in a separate interview where he described their games as irresponsibly large. And those are higher up decisions that are being made where they're focusing on quantity over quality. We'll get into all of that. But to me, again, it goes down to a systemic issue and not just one particular individual. I think what Emil says here, for the most part, is actually pretty solid.
Emil didn't say a single word of that. It was a PR firm, 100%.
Solid. In fact, his transparency in one way actually highlights, I think, one of the biggest problems with Shattered Space, and again, why I think it's a systemic issue. We'll get into that in just a moment. But by and large, I have no problem with developers acknowledging, like, hey, we get how this looks. We're not trying to rub mud in your face. I'm just excited about what we made. But excitement doesn't equal good, as we all know. I'm an excitable person, famously so, Mr. Near Perfect, right? So, yeah, like, I totally can sympathize with this kind of person who's just passionate and excited. And
being excited by anything and blinded by it is a sign of low IQ.
I do appreciate him taking head on.
You can be excited by stuff, but if you're literally excited by any 5-second cinematic trailer for a game and you just don't even care about it, is it good or bad, you don't ask these questions, you are an extremely low IQ individual.
Like, no ego, no arrogance. Like, we're just here to do the work. It's really in the middle what he says that is quite revealing to me personally, where I'll read it again. He says, most of the quests and levels were done by designers who have worked on previous Bethesda games and DLCs, going all the way back to Morrowind. They're good at what they do, and it shows. That honestly scares me. And I'm going to be honest, because to me, it felt like this was not the traditional Bethesda experience I know and love. And I know for a fact I haven't outgrown it because I go back and play many of their games. And hell, I'll even say this. I've gone back to Fallout 76 multiple times this year because of the updates they provided since the Fallout TV show. And the wandering experience there is also good. So I think
that's a blatant lie. If you like 76, there's something deeply, deeply wrong as you as a human individual. Now, granted, I will say this. I played Diablo 4. Well, haven't played the new expansion yet, but, you know, it's a work in progress. At some point I will. At some point I will. But, you know, there are situations where even though Diablo is technically a bad game currently, I mean, if you have literally nothing to do, yeah, fine. You can play Fallout 76, you can play Diablo 4. I have done it, and I admit, I'm eating slop at that point. But one thing is to be able to admit that that you like something that's bad. The other one is, you know, being a fervent about, you know, defending the fact that what you like is not shit and it is good and everyone else is wrong. That's just stupid and bad.
I think it just may be a problem with how you explore in Starfield. I don't think the Rev 8 feels particularly good, especially because you can't like call it in whenever you want to call it in order to travel around the world you're on. You just kind of have to make sure it's next to you and that you're parking in the right spot and you remember where you parked it. But it's also that you can like skip pack and jump pack everywhere and float over environments and key locations. And I know that provides that space explorer feel for some, but I do think Bethesda games feel best when they're rooted in the ground itself and you're not flying everywhere. So it could just be a design issue with Starfield. But when I hear like, oh no, these are the same teammates that have been making your favorite games for a while, that's when I go, there's a problem here. There is a problem here big time, because for me with Starfield Shattered Space, it was not like, oh, this is more Starfield, because I actually think Starfield base game is way better than Shattered Space, way better in terms of writing, questing, character development, hell, even gameplay.
That is sad and untrue. Well, technically, even if it was true, it would still be sad and would not matter because it's still bad.
I would agree, because I thought the exploration and things I found were really lacking. So just that lack of quality there is what's scary to me, that, oh, these are the same people making the things you like, but there's a lower quality bar here. Like, my read of the situation is genuinely a little bit of a, we just want to move on to Elder Scrolls 6 type energy I'm getting from this DLC, because of just how haphazard it felt, how half-baked it felt, how overpriced it felt. There was something off about this whole project here after playing it. And it seems like Bethesda's committing to doing more, that they're going to continue to support it. And I can admire...
What's the point of supporting it? What is the point of supporting Starfield? They have already shown that they think that Starfield is an amazing game, and the only thing that they do is need to, like, you know, add an FOV slider and a couple of bug fixes that create more bugs. They're not changing quest dialogues, quest options, talent points, maps, map designs, enemy varieties, guns, upgrades. They're not changing any of these things that people are begging to be fixed and made into an actual playable game. Instead, they're fixing bugs that no one even knows exist.
Sticking with it. Certainly after Fallout 76 and its major resurgence this year, I don't blame Bethesda for sticking with any failed project at this point. And Starfield isn't a failure, it's just to many a disappointment, which there is, believe it or not, a difference between these two. But I thought what Emil said here was quite illuminating. But continuing on that subject matter of systemic issues here, Todd Howard did an interview recently, and VGC covered it, saying
my favorite under 5 feet man.
Howard says Bethesda's games are irresponsibly large and explains why. Quote, my job on...
Isn't this something that he said already previously?
On the games often is to be the director, a little bit more like a movie director, he said, where you're bringing all the parts together from the art, the cinematography, the technology that our engineers are building to bring these worlds to life. And obviously, there's all the writing and the quest design and the level designer. And there's so many parts to our games that I'm in a really unique position to work with so many amazing people and bring all of that together. Smirking, he then added, actually, we cut very little from our games at Bethesda, which is why the games are so irresponsibly large, end quote.
That sounds like he's just inflating his own ego. Oh, look at how big and shitty our games are.
So I watched the interview. This is said a little bit in jest, but again, I do find it particularly telling, because one of the key issues with Starfield is, as Todd puts it here, it is irresponsibly large. That is the...
It's not. That's a lie and a cope.
Best definition for it, because even as someone who very enjoyed Starfield, I think general constructive criticism across myself and the community has said that this game is so big, you have neutered one of the key components out of a Bethesda Game Studios experience, which is the ability to wander, the ability to explore. The concerning...
There would not be a problem with this AI generation. The problem with Starfield on a base level is the fact that they don't even have enough random tiles. If you go into a cave, then you go into a second cave. The third cave is already going to be something that you have seen in the first and second cave. It's just there's not enough tiles in the game. If you have seen one landing bay, the second landing bay is almost a carbon copy of it. Random research facility on one planet? Well, congratulations. The second and third and fourth research facility are probably going to be almost carbon copies of it. Go inside a building. What do you see? Well, it's the same color as every other building, and it has the same layout as every other building that you have been in, and it has the same enemies, same boxes, same aesthetics, same props, same enemies, same everything, okay? Honestly, at the end of the day, when you play Starfield and you go into a building, congratulations, you just literally experience 99% of the game, because everything else is going to be a carbon copy of that one building that you already were inside of. It is just sad.
Part, as I mentioned earlier, is that you gave it to us in Shattered Space and the quality was lower than, for me, like, as I've really let the dust settle on this DLC, you know, I think it may be my least favorite out of anything they've done, barring Workshop DLC from Fallout 4 and the horse armor, like the obvious things. If we're talking quest expansions and whatnot, I really do feel like, yeah, like even...
Dude, how the hell was the horse armor not better quality than Starfield?
Dawnguard is better, because Dawnguard at least was a cool story and you could become a vampire, and I love the visuals for it, but Shattered Space across the board for me was just extremely disappointing. But that aside, they gave us what we wanted there. That's a whole separate problem. When they didn't give us what we wanted, we got something from Starfield which felt way too big than it ever needed to be. You know, the planets led to so many loading screens. Because there were so many planets, it led to procedural generated content all over the place. In turn, as someone who plays these games and tries to 100% them anytime they can, it's very difficult to 100% Starfield, because you don't know where you're going to find content, because it's difficult to discover content because you're not in like a localized area where you can seek out and find people and collect that content, because you can find that content when you like warp into a random star system somewhere. So it's a little too haphazard, and for some people that's the magic of it, and I totally respect and understand that. But when you
almost for no one, it's the magic of it.
Call it irresponsibly large, this is where I would love to see some sort of inside reporting on what's going on Bethesda Game Studios, because what I am seeing continuously is a focus on quantity, not quality. They've talked about building the simulations, building the worlds that people, quote, want to live in. And I think people want to play in these worlds. That's what I've always said. And I think part of living in these worlds is just it being fun to play within and doing things that kind of maintain, if you will, that simulation that Bethesda talks about so often. And that's things like letting you stay on planet for a really long time. Like, that's probably the best thing about Shattered Space, is I'm in one spot for a long time, and that's the place I most intimately know about Starfield. Not with great memories, but at least I had that experience like I would in a BGS game, where I got to know a pocket of this universe very closely by interacting with its people, by exploring its cities and nearby locations. Like, that's what we're looking for, of course. But when it's so big that you can only get that in certain pockets...
Oh, this is so goddamn cope, okay? Listen, this is a complete lie. There's not even a pocket. Let me explain how, but let me explain a couple of things. Starfield does have hand-created content, and some of it is actually not even that bad. But the problem is that the locations that are hand-created are, like, 5 or something like that. It's ridiculously low. Which is hilarious, by the way. And these small pockets, you're going to encounter one roughly, I don't know, every 3 to 5 hours of gameplay. That's how often you're probably going to encounter them. So there's effectively that makes it so that there are 0 handcrafted locations in this game. Because even if you go to a planet and there's a handcrafted location there, you're probably going to not go to it, because you're going to be like, okay, this is another dead-end planet with nothing for me to find or see. I'm just going to go off. That's how it goes. It's sad. Well, anyway, that was Mr. Matty Plays 10 out of 10. Bye.